Thanks, John Channel here over at Subscribestar. So let me start with this kind of right in the middle of it because it shows kind of the pointless argument of social media, just the back and forth, and then you stop and step back and you realize, oh, so we spent time arguing over what exactly? Oh, absolutely nothing. It's just like minutes of your life they just you threw away on something that you look back on later and go, maybe I should uninstall the app. You think, yeah, that's really good. So from Adam Sessler to Eminem, as these people are getting involved in this discussion, are people just soft and weak now? Yeah, they really are. So if I understand this correctly, they're judging the people on G4TV on their humor from 13 years ago because that is a perfectly reasonable thing to spend time on, talking about a little known, or whatever G4TV was called in 2006, some show that not probably not many people were watching, and then to relitigate it 13 years later. Twitter is absolute cancer unless you're selling a product and Twitter directly translates into money advertising for you. There's no point in being on it. Just get off it and take up, if you need something to do with your time, sculpture or drawing. I mean, anything is better than the pointless fighting on any social media. If it's not putting money in the bank, if it's not doing something for you, it's just time wasted. You'd be better off like reading some classic books out of Western literature or something, or really anything is better than social media. And probably for most of these people, a little bit of exercise would not go amiss. All right, so I'm kind of in the position of having to defend Mr. Method, Adam Sessler, who's either mentally ill or back on drugs, because his Twitter history is just knucking futs. He's not somebody who's well. He's somebody like you're expecting to hear, oh, he went away for 28 days. Like, okay, that would make sense. The thing is, he is obviously a giant douchebag, and it seems like a lot of people at G4TV are colossal. I mean, you got Frost and him, and you look back and forth like, oh, you're horrible people. It seems likely that anything you people are involved in is going to be a mess, and indeed what happened to G4TV was a total mess. So he's not istophobic just because a soylent mob of angry teenagers is calling him that. They're wrong. It's okay to look at an entire mob of angry soy boys and cat ladies and say, yeah, all 40,000 people who are arguing about this on one side on social media, they're all wrong, and you're right, because if you know you're right, you're right. Words have meaning. And if they don't have meaning, if you can change them overnight, well, you're saying you don't want to live in a causal universe. You just at a child's level of argument, you're not going to be able to accomplish anything with that kind of thing. Is it's okay to criticize games from other countries. It's not de facto istophobic. That those phrases have been thrown around way too much by these commie kids. Soy boys and cat ladies are just parroting things that they've heard without stopping to think about the definitions of them. It makes them feel good to virtue signal because it gets them the attention that they crave as the slacktivists that they are. They don't even want to actually do anything other than whine on Twitter about stuff that happened a decade ago. What's the point? There is none. It's first world deck chair on the Titanic type of stuff. By pretending to care about Japan, they can get some likes on Twitter, and their dopamine receptors will get those sweet neurotransmitters. And for a minute, they'll feel like they've done something. But, in 2006, if they're around watching the show, they were probably laughing at the show, and they thought it was perfectly normal. But now, 13 years later, they want a little attention on Twitter, so they're criticizing them, but it's like, oh, but if you were around in 2006, wouldn't you have been fine, absolutely fine with it? Because that was the standards and practices of the time. Oh, no, I would have been different. Yeah, I'm sure you would. I mean, these are the people who they sell out the J6 people, the left wing Rage Against the Machine crowd, and I wonder if like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, they look back on that and they're like, so you're the left at the time. Yeah, that's right. And you're selling out the mostly peaceful protesters who protested against the government overreach of power, the people who were speaking truth to power, people who were talking against the government, and you're on the left and you turn them in to the FBI, and you're on the left. So looking back on that 10 years later, you maybe reassess yeah, they're probably going to, like 10 years later, after the J6 people have been in prison for 4 years, they're probably going to go, what happened to us? Like, yeah, that's a good question. The thing is, any use of their time would be better. They should go garden. They can go jogging. Seriously, like sell the video games, erase Twitter, garden, and jog. Anything is better than the pointless existence of the social media sphere. It's just absolutely cancer, full of everyone on their period. Anyway, Japan is obviously number one, konnichiwa, master race, super ubermensch, and whatever, but it's okay to make fun of them. Like, it should be okay to make fun of everyone, but we really have two different belief systems here that are, the schism between them is growing daily. You get cultural Marxists on one side and the normal people on the other side. Oh no, those are not the normal people. Those are all Hugo Boss. Okay, but I mean, you're the side that wants to hurt children, and so the side against hurting children is going to be the right side that most people are going to take. So it's just a little FYI for you. Like, that's a hill most people are going to die on, hopefully. So from what I observe, the Bolsheviks insist on diversity, but then because humans have adverse interests to each other because they're not fungible. Oh no, they're precisely and accurately the same. But they're not, and like deep down nobody believes that. You can see that they're having endless conflict, but instead of just separating and accepting that, you're going to have different things for different people. If these games or if this area of social media is not for you, or these books or these movies are not for you, okay, fine. Then it's like, it's for this group of people. It's not for you. This club is not for you. There's going to have to be more of that. People are going to have to be way more comfortable with just separating off in their own little areas of influence, and like trying to involve everyone in something doesn't make sense. I mean, when they have interests literally adverse to each other, they have different philosophies, different worldviews. It doesn't make sense that they just de facto think, oh, inclusion is the way to go. Like, no, I mean, that's not logically consistent. You can see the evidence before you. Why would you say, like, they're just saying things, but then when you stop and ask them for evidence and the argument back and forth, they just repeat it because they don't, like, they're just repeating what their Bolshevik professors told them to repeat. Anyway, so they see that there's like just endless conflict going on with people who have different worldviews, and then like they see that conflict and they go, "Oh, we need more diversity." It's like, it's clearly not working. You can see how people are arguing. Even if something is like just bringing women into a male something, men are doing something. It's like it throws off the chemistry of the group. It changes everything. You're just gonna have to, like, if you want these things to succeed, you're gonna have to gatekeep and go, okay, this is a group for guys who are off doing this thing. We accept that women are gonna throw off the chemistry, so we're gonna gatekeep. It's like, if you guys, like, if you're really into something, you'll start your own project or start your own club, and you realize, like, yeah, a lot of these people aren't really into this stuff because they would go off and, like, it's usually guys who are going off and starting things that they're into, and then other people went in on it, and you're like, if you were really into it, you start your own thing, and they're not really into it. I love comic books. I'm going to get in the industry. You go, so how many comic books did you buy? Oh, I didn't. I got them for free from my older brother. Okay, well, that's the difference, is that your older brother was paying for them. It's a whole different psychological step where you got them for free and you think you're into comic books, but he mowed lawns and paid for them. Like, clearly you have to understand the difference between that. It's like, that's the same thing. It's the same thing. Women read comics. The only thing that matters is who pays for them. The secondary user of anything, if they're getting it for free, is really irrelevant. Oh, is that why comics are so bad over the past 20 years? Like, yep. I mean, that's one of the reasons. The other issue is how comfortable these Maoist children are. And I mean, really, if like you want to like read Animal Farm and then go read the history of Maoist China and the children's revolution, it's fascinating to see what little children of the corn you can turn children into absolute sociopaths because they're like unformed adults. I mean, they'll do anything you tell them to do. They can brainwash them into thinking that, oh, we need to torture our parents to death and like have struggle sessions and put teachers on farms and farmers in schools. Like, so what happened to the farms? We starve 50 million people because farming is a skill, as you learn with gardening, is a skill too. So the other issue is how comfortable these kids are, or sometimes the adults on Twitter, but they're adult bodies with childlike, the participation trophy generation. They really do have that worldview where any conflict is like they immediately go, their needle goes to RPM red line because it's everything's a personal attack on them. It's fracturing their worldview because they never learn that. Somebody posted some tweet about people avoid politics and religion or something like that, and it taught people like how to avoid these things and then go to 0 to 100 all at once when it gets brought up. But really, you should be teaching people how reasonable adults can have discourse with each other and sometimes disagree without being disagreeable. How you can discuss religion and politics and whatever you want to discuss as reasonable, mature adults in a liberal constitutional republic, as fully formed, realized adults. And we don't have that now because you have a lot of adults who are very, very weird. And people jokingly say you need a war. Yeah, they mean that in the sense of like growing people up really quickly. It seems like there was a cultural shift in different areas of the country where that participation trophy generation hit different areas of the country at different times. And now you get people who are like in their early 40s who are like the Mark Wades of the world, where they just can't deal with different opinions without like having an anxiety attack and having to go to deflection, straw man, and ad hominem because it's a personal attack on their worldview. It's kind of with the Richard Meyer Comicsgate thing is endlessly fascinating to me because you saw how a lot of these people in the mainstream professional comic crowd responded like it was a personal attack on them because you were making fun of a commercial product. It's like it's comics, and they're not used to, they're deeply in an echo chamber, so much so that if you weren't in that echo chamber you would not be welcome in the industry. So the other issue is like they never understand that different standards for different times. They don't seem to understand that it's an endless cycle of, if you constantly destroy the past to live in the eternal present. And they seem to think that they, as mostly teenagers, have finally arrived at the last step on the Bolshevik train. And I mentioned J.K. Rowling as an example of that, of a feminist in some earlier wave of feminism, and she's pushing this train to a station, and then she stops pushing. She expects the train to stop. She goes, "Oh, we've arrived at where I want to stop." And then she looks around, and there's all these other people who are calling themselves feminists, and men and women, who are still pushing the train, and the train keeps going on without her. It just gets further and further into absurdity. It's like, yeah, why would you think it would stop? Like, you started this thing rolling. It's like these people are going to continue it. Now she's trying to slow the train down. You can't. So they never seem to think that the future standards won't continue to evolve. It never occurs to them what a childlike view they have of the world, how myopic that worldview is, to not think like, oh, so in the future, are we going to be judged harshly? Yeah, that's why you try to be as kind and gentle now to people in the past. But I mean, you've seen over the past 4 years of people tearing down statues and icons. It's like, you realize that'll never stop, right? It's not just the ones, the European past, but I mean, the garbage you put up now, you're going to, a statue of Oprah Winfrey. And then you find, the thing is that they're putting statues up of like, who's that guy? The guy who broke into a woman's house, robbed her at Liberty Device Point, a long history of crime, just a scumbag. And you go, oh, so these are your idols. Like the idols, the people you make statues and icons and art murals of, like these people all have violent criminal histories. What does it say about you and the state you're trying to create where you venerate these people? Like, obviously it doesn't say a whole lot. So, but I mean, these people are like Floyd. Floyd was just a scumbag. I mean, he's in a better place right now. He's a scumbag. And don't get me wrong, like both those characters are in better places, but you tore down icons of old Englishmen who are judged by current standards, but were fine by their standards. But you put them in place by somebody who's a bad person by any metric. A Floyd character who robbed pregnant women. That's an evil character by anyone's standard. Except there's a growing percentage of people in America who seem to idealize criminals. Anyway, so when Sessler was making fun of Japanese games in 2006, it was obviously acceptable for the standards of the time, or if not perfect, it was within what was allowed by the fact that it was on the air. And keep in mind, something is going to offend everyone. That's one of the problems with diversity. You can't have comedy or free speech in a diverse society. Eventually, you have to censor it or separate, which we're very close to now because every joke is against, the only jokes that are allowable, obviously, are vaguely against Christianity, which is like the country's not very religious anymore, so the jokes don't really land, or blonde man bad, or just, European people in general. Eventually, people are going to understand it's better to separate than to stay together and just endlessly fight. And there's another weird, nuanced issue that specifically deals with Japan and the left wing, where the Bolsheviks will passively, aggressively counter-signal Japan because it's still a nation of one people, and obviously it's the best place on earth. And for all its imperfections, like, it's not perfect, so we need to destroy it. It's like, yeah, no place is perfect, but Japan will be Japan in 200 years, and the West will not be the West in 200 years. And I only say that because it's objectively true. So yeah, Japan is not perfect, but you know what? Japan will figure out its problems. It will figure itself out. It's not gonna just replace itself to, like, if you replace Japan with non-Japanese people, what are you saving? It doesn't make any sense. But there's a lot of mentally ill Bolsheviks. It's like you see what's happened with the West. So the thing is, for all its imperfections, compare Tokyo to the living nightmare that is Los Angeles. American cities look like science fiction examples of post-atomic war zombie apocalypses. In fact, Hiroshima and Nagasaki recovered better look better now than most American cities. America was a country that at one time was a pretty nice place, even the cities, and now those cities are destroyed. Amerifat does not have the right to lecture anyone on anything, which is weird because they go around the world killing people so they can turn those countries into LA and Detroit, and they think they've accomplished something. It's crazy that we're fine with spending trillions of taxpayer dollars to destroy countries 10,000 miles away, literally while we have expanding homeless tent cities throughout America, to give those countries the gift of democracy. Anyway, the left wing hates Japan because it clearly shows that a nation is better when it's one people. And it blows my mind that anyone in America would tell anyone in any other country how to do anything. Why don't you try fixing Chicago before you try to export those Amerifat values around the world? Oh, I never really, never really thought of it that way. Yeah, trillions of dollars overseas. Like, why don't you focus on trying to fix Detroit, Chicago? Or any one of the various Memphis. I think Memphis, Detroit, Chicago are the three worst cities in America. Maybe fix those cities. Oh, no. Mayorkas and Garland need to work on the Proud Boys. Well, I mean, there's like Chicago's got like 2 deletions a day. How many did the Proud Boys delete last year? Well, none. That's true. They did, okay, none. You got me there. But we need to spend money on that and focus our attention and resources on that because we're a federal agency. Okay, well then revamp the federal agency to make it a state agency so you can fix Detroit and Chicago or Oakland or parts of LA. It's like maybe entirely get rid of that federal agency and just put those people into state agencies to do something. I mean, none of this makes sense when you stop to think about it. It's like, yeah, that's why we keep people going from emergency to emergency. I think it's a Hegelian dialectic or something. It's a shiny object syndrome. You keep people going from emergency to emergency. It's a Star Wars Lucas prequel syndrome, I'll admit. So they're just not focused on a long-term goal. They're focused on what's the next shiny object right in front of their nose. So they can't, they never stop to ask, like, oh, wait, homeless tent cities, Detroit, Chicago, Memphis, just dystopian nightmare, crime-ridden shitholes, trillions of dollars to Ukraine, overseas in general. None of that makes sense. Yeah. Shiny object. Focus on the next shiny object. Hey, look, there's a flu. Oh. It feels like a distraction. No. That's an alt-right dog whistle. Hey, focus on the... You get the idea. I mean, there's only so much you can say on YouTube. YouTube's so friggin' lame. It's just as it does bring in a few dollars. So what are you going to do? Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Check out the subscribe star, and I'll see you guys all next episode.